So let's say you're sitting down one night and you're chilling on Netflix watching your new favorite show, Squid Game, and you start to wonder, who the hell would actually do that? What kind of rich megalomaniac would fund such a ridiculous project, and how much money would they lose? Then you remember that you too are part of that 0.1% and also happen to be a sociopath named Jeff. So you decide that you are going to make your very own Squid Game. How much would you really need to shell out, and would you be able to make any money? Or is this just another classic money pit like new cars, mobile games, or Blue Origin? So let's get your inner Ilnam out and find out together. So let's start with the simplest expense, the jackpot the players will be competing over. Assuming everything goes well, you will be shelling out 45.6 billion won, or to make things simple, since most of my audience is either American or at least understands the value of USD better, $38 million. Now you may think that this is the biggest expense, but you're actually wrong. The biggest and most difficult expense will easily be your personnel. The hardest part is always going to be finding the correct personnel to work at your new and soon-to-be sprawling death games company. They need to be hardworking, quiet, obedient, and totally fine with killing innocent civilians. You might think of serial killers, convicts, or people who are super desperate for money, but unfortunately, that won't work. Serial killers might just start killing for fun, and convicts probably won't be obedient. Not to mention, even the most desperate of civilians might hesitate to kill your contestants, and then that'll just spoil the fun, won't it? So the correct answer here is ex-military. But unfortunately for us, even most people who are ex-military usually don't consider it morally correct, whatever that means, to murder their own civilians for cold hard cash. The good news is that you're hiring in South Korea, where all able-bodied males between the ages of 18 and 28 are required to serve 2 years in the military. So you've got a pretty good sized pool of people to surf through and find those few who are just desperate enough to murder innocent civilians for money, but not desperate enough to break our rules. I definitely recommend adding a layer of anonymity while they are working so none of them recognize each other, and don't hesitate to kill the ones that break the rules. And just like that, you've got an amazingly efficient and inhumane workplace that rivals that of the workplaces you created back in America. Since we are targeting the desperate, like usual, we don't have to pay them that much. 200K for a month of working, including room and board, should be enough to cover the lowest ranked ones and keep them quiet. Managers will probably get 500K, and supervisors will get $1 million. If we break them down like this, personnel costs round to about $35 million. So now we have the pot of money and we have the personnel to run the games, excluding the front man, but he comes later. So now we need to get a physical location, so let's talk private islands. Now, surprisingly enough, we don't actually own our own private island yet. Not for lack of affording one, I guess we just haven't gotten around to it yet. Either way, we would need to buy a new one for the games anyways. Can't have bloodstains on our new imported Greek white veneer, now can we? So the typical asking price of a private island of the size we need is between roughly $3 to $10 million. The more expensive ones already have infrastructure in place, which is nice. The only problem is buying in South Korea is hard. So to save some money, I recommend we just suck up the extra price of switching from ferries to planes and flying them to this luxurious island off the coast of the Philippines, since frankly, it's a steal at $3.9 million. Granted, we are doing this in the spirit of the Squid Game, and I'm sure if we flash enough money around in South Korea, we could find a suitable island at a premium. So let's say $10 million without infrastructure in place. And trust me, that's a bad deal. I'd still personally recommend Dollyhocken Island and just flying them there, but fair enough. We want to keep true to the ideals of the original Squid Game, and if it costs us a few extra $1 million, so be it. So we finally got the private island, granted for an excess of $10 million, but now we need transportation. Luckily, that's easy. Your typical ferry runs between $150,000 to $750,000. So let's splurge and say we buy 2 nice ferries at $500,000 apiece, with $50,000 set aside for maintenance since that is the recommended yearly amount for those vehicles. While we are talking about transportation, let's talk about those vans. Now, I know they use Hyundais in this show, but I'd really recommend Ford for this. Despite their usually questionable reputation, Ford vans are known for being bulletproof, and let's just say you don't want one of your employees to be broken down the side of the road in a pink jumpsuit with a bunch of knocked out contestants in the back. Not a great look for our company. I'd recommend the Ford 2021 Transit Passenger Van XL. It seats up to 15 people, so -2 for the driver and passenger seat, and that means we'll be able to move all 456 contestants to the ferries with only 36 of these vans. So going at $42,000 a piece, that's roughly $1.5 million. Now, I did look to see if Ford offered this vehicle with a sleep gassing feature, but I couldn't find it on their website. But setting something like that up won't exactly be hard or expensive, and will probably run you an extra $2,000 per vehicle at most, bringing it up to a measly $1.6 million. So we've got the contestants, we've got the personnel, we own the island, and finally we have a way to get there. Unfortunately, right now, it's just an uninhabited island with dense forests, and come on, we aren't playing the most dangerous game here. What are we, millionaires? We have standards. So let's talk about one of the most expensive parts of recreating our very own Squid Game: infrastructure. Luckily, we got one thing working for us for this part. Our name is Jeff, and we are damned experienced at building warehouses. Now, our biggest warehouse costs us $370 million, and that's including equipment, amenities, and all the bells and whistles. But that warehouse is almost 100 acres big, which is completely oversized for this project. At max, 10 acres will be plenty. Hell, it's probably excessive for what we need, but better safe than sorry. So if we scale that down, that's $37 million for our facility. But that is a bit of an oversimplified look. I'd say the cost of creating a small port and transporting materials will surely add at least another $5 million, bringing our total to $42 million. And like I said, that covers all the amenities, from the bedrooms to the kitchens to the games themselves. So now that we've got one of the biggest expenses out of the way, let's quickly knock out some of the smaller ones. $117,000 for food. Here is the math for the nerds who are interested. As for weapons, you can get a decent AR for $1,000 a piece, especially if you're buying in bulk. So 75 ARs would be fine, with some snipers and pistols mixed in, plus $25,000 for ammo to round it all to a nice, even $200,000 for weapons and ammunition. Luckily, weapons and gunpowder are extraordinarily cheap. I'd also recommend that we bribe some of the local cops and politicians in areas where we are picking contestants from. $500,000 is pocket change for us, and it could really help us if we get put into a tough situation. So finally, we've got the front man. The purpose of the front man is to run our company for us. God forbid if we would have to do any actual work for ourselves. Now, the reason I saved the front man for last is because his pay is the most important. You see, we need to pay him enough to where he stays loyal to us and works to make us the most money, but not so much as to where he can run off and start his own company. We need to keep him trapped. Let him be rich in comparison to his peers, but not beyond rich to where he could take his skills and knowledge and just go and create his own Squid Game. That would cause competition, and boy, we do not like competition. So I recommend a fixed wage of $1.5 million per Squid Game and a guarantee of 2.5% of all gross earnings from each year. This is a great strategy to keep them stuck. It'll make them work hard because that 2.5% is where they'll make a large bulk of their money. If a Squid Game makes $500 million from bidders, he walks away with $13.5 million in his pockets. It's a lot of money, but not enough to where he can leave and become a competitor. So we finally have everything together. We've got our personnel, transportation, our private island, our facilities, the games built, and 456 unsuspecting, poverty-ridden debtors. I think it's finally time we invited our friends Bill and Elon over for some fun, innocent games. Of course, we can't just bring them over in our ferries. They might think we're measly millionaires. So I'd recommend the Eurocopter Hermes EC-135. Luxurious, but still coming in at a relatively affordable $6 million. Maybe also spend about $1 million on their furniture, viewing area, and food. I was also going to say that we'd have to calculate and pay taxes, but I'd almost forgotten for a second that we were rich. And there we go, our very own Squid Game. So let's finally do the math and see what the damage is. And the answer is $137,017,000 to start our very own Squid Game. Now, do keep in mind that it gets way cheaper next year because we can reuse the transportation, hopefully reuse the island and facilities, if not sell it, and the only two major expenses will be personnel and contestants. And with a few of our billionaire buddies betting and probably losing a ton of money because there are a ton of different contestants to choose from, this could easily be a profitable venture. Let's say the minimum bet is $10 million. With multiple rounds, multiple stages of betting, and a bunch of big spenders, you could easily pull in $200 to $300 million in a single game. The only problem is, can poor Jeff really afford this? And I say, yeah, don't worry, we'll be fine, because overall, it's only 0.08% of our personal wealth, which is frankly pocket change for us. Let us give an example so the working class can comprehend. If you have $10,000 to your name, it's the equivalent of $8. So yeah, I hope you sleep well tonight knowing that fact, that to some of the richest people in the world, your life is only worth $8. By the way, I absolutely got put on a government watch list while making this video. After all, I looked up the prices of assault rifles, underground bunkers, Jeff Bezos' name multiple times, transport vans, and private islands in the South China Sea. So yeah, a subscription would go a long way since I'm probably going to be on the no-fly list for a while. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys share, like, comment, and subscribe. This is Manime Matt. Make sure you guys stay a man and go watch that goddamned anime. Or, Korean drama.